I was born quite a number of years ago in a place we call Dagoretti, but then I moved to a place we call Sigona in Muguga. That's where I grew up, in a beautiful place. It was a forest, and I think it helped me in developing my interest in nature because I love nature. And I went to school in that area. But for my high school, from Form 1 to Form 6, I went to a school we call Kabare Girls in Kirinyaga. And after that, I joined Nairobi University. Yeah. And I did education. I did maths and biology. I'm a teacher of maths and biology. From when I was young, I have been called a teacher. I remember when I was in Standard 4, we had students who could not read, and I remember the teachers giving me work to teach them to read. I remember a boy who could not say my name is Jenga. He kept saying my nose is Jenga. But I think I was an active girl. I was very active physically and noisy, of course. And I was able to teach 4 boys to read. And when I was in secondary school, I used to carry my cousins home during the holiday and teach them. My sisters, when they were in Form 1, 2, I was the one teaching them maths, bio, chem. And I remember later on, they were telling me that because they were like doing it for me when I stopped teaching, because I stopped teaching later on, they stopped topping their class. Like they ignored the sciences. But I love sciences. Later on in life, I stopped teaching. I taught actually for about 2 years, but I went to banking because I love maths. And I was a banker. I was working with Barclays Bank for 15 years. Then after 15 years, I decided to go and do business. I love business. I remember when I was young, my bedroom was a shop. I would collect all sorts of papers and put soil, and I think I loved business right from the beginning. So I went into business, and at one point I had an insurance agency. I also went and studied insurance, and I had kept an insurance agency. And from there I developed interest in counseling because I had discovered what I could do with my noise, because throughout my school I was seen to be very, very noisy. And every time I went to sell insurance to people, they kept telling me their stories, and I was like, why do they tell me? I don't know what to tell them. So I was going to study counseling so that I can know what to be telling them. And least did I know that actually counseling is just about listening to people, giving them a chance to ventilate their emotions, to say what is in their hearts and their minds. And you only give them a feedback, very little feedback. And after that, I kept my agency, and I continued with my counseling career. At one point, I became a facilitator in a college. I was teaching in 2 different colleges. And when I've not talked about my marriage. I got married when I was a banker. For me, because I loved sports a lot. I remember when I was in school, I was a games captain, and Kabare Girls was big. And my husband loved books. When I got married to him, I used to wonder what kind of a man I married, because under the beds, books, under the pillows, books, everywhere books, table on the table. And I used to tell him, if you are to do any business, you either do a bookshop so that you can read all the books before you sell them, or you start a school. And we had that dream for about 20 years. And later on is when we started a school. But it was a long journey. 20 years was long, and we kept that vision in our minds and our hearts. And finally, we were able to start a school. But now I do counseling, and when we started school, I realized you cannot go prospecting for insurance. It's difficult. So I stopped doing insurance. and continued with the school and now counseling. My passion, one, is counseling. I discovered I love people. I love listening to people. I like helping where I can. And I love education. I just want to work with the young people, mold them. And my greatest joy is when I see a student come in Form 1, innocent, small, but by Form 4 they are confident, they are very different. And if I have made any difference in their lives, that gives me the greatest joy. Those days, banking was quite manual in many ways. We used to walk a lot, we used to work a lot, and I loved, the bit that I loved most was serving customers. Actually, I discovered I love serving people, talking to people and working with people. So we would work sometimes even for very long hours. You go home late, especially end of the month. And by God's grace, I had a husband who was very supportive. If I didn't have a house help, he would help. If I came home late, he would help. He would come for me from wherever I would be coming from. And I think for a couple that supports each other, it is possible to do these things. When we started, we had realized there was a great need for boys' schools. Private schools were, most investors were not starting boys' schools because they were saying boys ban schools, although these days even girls are banning schools. And we kept hearing what the media was giving, the information media was giving, saying there are so many children who will not get places in Form 1. And we thought, why not start a boys' school? And also, I had also realized, as a counselor, I had come across teenagers, and I realized the boy child was really abandoned when I was doing counseling. So that also informed me in starting a boys' school, because I really wanted to nurture them and empower them. Although later on we decided in 2019 we registered the school, and now we have a mixed school for different reasons. But for the last 16 years, we have been mentoring and empowering and educating the boy child. We started with 10 boys, I remember, and that was 2004. In 2007, we did the first KCSE, and we did well. For quite a number of years, we are doing well. Of course, we don't admit just the students who have come in with very high marks. But I'm glad to say that when we look at our performance out of the Form 4, we look at how did you enter, what was your entry point. If you came with 300 marks and above, did you achieve your A or your B? And again, something that has kept me going is I have seen students who come in with low marks, but they are able to turn around. Like I remember a boy who came in with 179 marks, and he managed to get his C plane. And what was very interesting about that story is the father never came to school for 4 years. But when we did a prize giving after now Form 4 for his son, he's the one who came for the prize. And that's why we are saying the boy child has been abandoned, especially by their fathers, because you are not supporting him when he needs you, but you can share his glory when he makes it. And those are things that I keep telling parents we need to change. We need to be more involved, all parents, but especially the fathers need to be more involved in raising their students, their children, their boys, and showing them how to become a man. Because ladies, as a lady, I cannot teach a boy to become a man. I'm not a man. And that's one of the things that I tell our parents when we get into contact with them. In the beginning, we would go to to primary schools and admit directly, the standard 8s. And then those who would come and we admit them. But of late, things are changing. People have gone digital. So if we have any parents in our data, we can also send to them our admission form, our flyer, a video or something, just to tell them that we are here. But it is becoming difficult because things are changing, and we find the mainstream media to be very expensive to advertise there. But at least we do try to see whichever forums. I can send a flyer, my flyer, to the groups I belong to, either in Facebook or in just the community, the social groups. And then I ask my friends to also share with their friends, and finally we get students, but not too many. We need to be known because we have all the facilities we need, and there are huge investments, but we find we are not enough students. But we have all what we need. So you find when parents come to the school, they are like, this is a nice facility, how come we don't know you? We say, yeah, we don't know how to reach you. So it's a very difficult thing. When we started the school, I used to teach, but then I realized it's difficult. Even for counseling, I don't counsel my students. It's unprofessional to be their manager and at the same time be their counselor. So what I do, I use the skills that I have to help them when they're in need. I think the biggest challenge is getting students. I keep telling myself, if we had students like the public schools just have students, and the thing is to manage them. Using our programs that we have, our mentorship, the psychological support that we give, we try to give them good physical care and emotional care. We are okay. People have been asking me, how do you run a boys' school as a lady? And I don't find it difficult. By the way, boys are not that difficult. In fact, sometimes some parents are like, they tell you things, they don't tell us. But of course, I have the skills now, so it's not very difficult. But if you give boys food, and then you give them activity, keep them busy, they are good to go. They are good to go. But if you keep them idle, and you don't give them enough food, then you fight. But boys are good. They get angry this moment. By the end of the day, they are done. The counseling skills have really, really helped me. Actually, when I was going for counseling, the other reason that made me go for counseling was because I knew we were going to start a school, and I needed to understand human behavior, people, and how they behave. And the counseling skills have really, really helped me, because when a student misbehaves or does a mistake, which is normal, I tell them, if you don't make a mistake, you're not normal. It's very normal to make a mistake. But you give them a listening ear. You always find people are people. They have challenges. They have reasons why they do what they do. They are coming from somewhere. Somebody doesn't just wake up and say, I want to misbehave. No. And that is always the beginning of involving such students in counseling. Because when you discover what they are going through, maybe at home, or maybe in school, or maybe socially, then as you are dealing with it, now you bring in the parents, and many times we recommend for students to go for counseling. If there are students who are even abusing drugs, because some of them you might not have realized, and they will open up, then we have even ended up sending some to rehabs, even if it means stopping to study for a while, because you cannot study when you are drugged. I love sports, and there is a program that I have been running. We call it the Outdoor Leadership Training, whereby we take students for camping and hiking and camping for about 6 days in a week. And it's a program I always wish I had more students, so that most of the parents can afford to pay for their students, because I've seen it turn the students around. It's a program where you want the student to be aware of his resources within, his physical strength, his ability to do things, to think, to lead. We are giving them survival skills. We are making things difficult for them so that they can learn to survive. And it has worked. Then the last day of that camp, we normally do what we call a solo night. We go put them like in the forest, each person in his own place where you cannot communicate with the others. And you sleep there, and we want the boy to think about his life. like plan his life. He's like, I have come, this is where I am. I have come this far. And where do I want to go? And I have seen those who are serious and they write down, because they write down. I have seen them really make it. And sometimes I have invited boys from other schools. So that one has been very much in my heart, because I've seen how our children have no exposure to anything physical. And of course, the strength of mind also comes from the strength of the body and the health, because you are, when you are healthy physically, you're also likely to be healthy mentally. And then also teaching them to do exercises, to have that initiative as a person. Can you learn to exercise so that you are fit and you are healthy, and of course you ventilate your emotions so that you are not so stressed. If you are stressed and you exercise, you are likely to ventilate those negative emotions and negative energy. So for me, success is when you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, and you know the limits, because we are limited. We are not God, we are limited. And we need to reach a point where we say, I have come to the end of this journey, and maybe I need to change. Otherwise, as now a counselor, I would say, then we start having mental issues when we struggle too much and we are not achieving. But living life one day at a time, struggling to get your goal, I think that's success for me. Because you can even leave this world before you achieve what you had set. But as long as you had a goal and you had a focus, I find it very interesting, because I say work is not just to get money. Work is to be busy, for one, because I think it would be boring if we were waking up every morning and we have nothing to do really. We have no focus. But work is very important to keep us sober and healthy. But success also, to me, on the other hand, is also when you do something that is also touching other people's lives. It's not all about us. I had a mother who used to tell me that you only eat one plate of food and you can only wear one dress per day. So if everything is about me, to get money, to do what we did after that. But if you have a bigger goal, a higher goal where you are targeting serving other people in one way or the other, because that's what really we do. Whatever we do, we serve each other. So if the focus is that person you are serving and doing the best you can and keeping other people happy, that way you also are happy and you also feel fulfilled. You get that satisfaction. And to me, that is success. As much as I love the business, I did know how difficult business is, and it has humbled me so much. When I see businesses closing up, I have now understood it's not easy. There's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of balancing, especially where it comes to handling finances, keeping the customer happy. Sometimes you think you have done your best and you still hear someone complaining. And to have the skills of handling that complaining customer, not to leave, sometimes is very difficult. So handling customers, I think, in any business is not easy. And having the right amount of money to have the right flow of cash to run a business is not easy. It's very, very humbling. When you are starting, you assume that it's easy. I know as well. But later, as I'm aging, I have learned to respect people who do business. Oh, Gladphil School, and I know that name is not easy. It's a name that comes from Gladwell and Philip. Gladphil School in Kitengela. We are in an area we call Nkasiti. Nkasiti is still within Kitengela. And we are 10 kilometers from the town of Kitengela. When you come to East African University, you just 200 meters ahead from the gate of East African University, you turn right. You travel along a small tarmac road, and if you follow the signpost, it's easy to find us. And we have a website. Gladphil School has a website. We are in Facebook, and I would welcome people to come and see us, see what we do, and join us if they can. We have the facilities. We have what we need. Gladwell was my mother-in-law, and Philip was my father-in-law. They loved education, and they really gave us a lot of support. They gave us 2 acres in Kikuyu, and we sold, and that's how we started the buildings. We had the land, but we didn't have money to put the buildings. So we thought, let's honor them. And they loved education. My father-in-law would still come and pray for our students, pray for our teachers. So we thought when we are naming the school to just honor them.